block, don't beg, just watch. Most people, when things don't go their way in relationships, they overreact, they block, they beg, they chase, and in the process, they destroy their own dignity. But the truth is, this real strength comes from patience, from emotional control, from letting reality reveal itself without trying to force it. If someone pulls away from you, don't panic. Don't go chasing after them. Don't sit there writing long paragraphs, trying to convince them of your worth. Just relax, step back, watch. Because their actions will tell you everything you need to know. When you don't block, you keep the door open. Lips. When you don't beg, you keep your self-respect intact. And when you just watch, you gain clarity. You get to see their true intentions. That's where your power comes from. That's how you separate yourself from the people who operate out of fear and step into the mindset of someone who values themselves. Now let me break it down into 6 simple truths you need to remember. Most people don't realize how impulsive they become when emotions take over. Blocking feels like a quick solution. It gives a temporary sense of control, almost like slamming a door in someone's face to stop the pain. But the reality is, when you block too quickly, you're not solving the problem, you're just avoiding it. Blocking is often fueled by anger, fear, or hurt. It's not strength, it's reaction. And anytime you act out of raw emotion, instead of calm judgment, you strip yourself of your own power. You cut yourself off from understanding the truth of what's really going on. Blocking should never be your first move, because it comes from a place of trying to force certainty. Think about it, you feel ignored, you feel rejected, or you feel uncertain about where the other person stands. Instead of sitting in that discomfort, you want to flip a switch and make it disappear. So you block. It's an emotional escape hatch, but in doing that, you rob yourself of the clarity that only comes from observing someone's actions over time. Blocking gives you the illusion of strength, but it's really just avoidance dressed up as self-protection. The danger of blocking too quickly is that you never give the other person the chance to reveal themselves. Maybe they needed space. Maybe they were testing your patience. Maybe they simply got busy or distracted and you took it personally. But instead of allowing time to reveal their true intentions, you slammed the door shut. And now, not only do you remain confused about what they actually wanted, but you've also shown them that your emotions control you, that you lack the ability to stay calm when things don't go your way. In relationships, emotional self-control is everything. Without it, you push people away before you even understand where they stand. Letting things breathe instead of blocking too quickly sends a different message, one of composure and strength. When you don't block, you're silently communicating, I'm not afraid of what happens. I'm not desperate for control. I'm going to allow you to reveal who you are without interference. That kind of attitude is powerful. It shows you're not dependent on the outcome. It shows you can handle discomfort without acting irrationally. And believe me, people notice that. They notice when you're steady, when you're not reactive, when you carry yourself with quiet confidence, even in the face of uncertainty. Here's the thing, blocking is permanent. Once you hit that button, you've taken a drastic step. You've made a decision based on the peak of your emotions. And most of the time, later on, you regret it. Because when the emotions settle, you realize you acted too soon, too harshly, and without giving the situation space to unfold naturally. Strong people don't need to block right away. They don't need to prove anything. They sit back, watch, and let life unfold. Weak people, on the other hand, let their emotions dictate every move. And then they spend months cleaning up the damage from one impulsive action. Not blocking too quickly doesn't mean you're tolerating disrespect. It doesn't mean you're allowing someone to mistreat you. It means you're operating from strength instead of fear. There's a big difference. You can still set boundaries. You can still pull back your attention, give space, and redirect your energy into yourself. But you don't need to hit the block button as a way to deal with your discomfort. Strength is staying calm in the storm. It's not about cutting people off instantly. It's about having the confidence to let the truth reveal itself without needing to manipulate the situation. So the next time you feel the urge to block, pause, breathe, ask yourself, am I reacting out of emotion or am I responding from strength? Blocking might silence the noise for a moment, but it doesn't give you answers. It doesn't give you clarity, and clarity only comes with time, patience, and observation. Don't block too quickly. Because the longer you allow space for someone to show you who they are, the more truth you'll see. And truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always better than a false sense of control. When you beg for attention, what you're really saying is, I don't believe I'm enough as I am. That energy bleeds through every word, every text, every action. Begging never comes from confidence, it comes from fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being forgotten, fear that you don't measure up. And the more you beg, the more you confirm to the other person that you don't see yourself as valuable. The truth is, attention should never have to be forced. Love should never need to be pulled out of someone. If it's not freely given, it's not real. Begging takes many forms. Maybe it's sending 10 messages in a row when they haven't replied. Maybe it's calling them over and over, hoping that persistence will win them back. Maybe it's emotional pleading, writing long paragraphs explaining why they should stay, why they shouldn't leave, why you deserve a chance. But here's the hard reality. The more you chase, the faster they run. Because what you're doing is suffocating. You're not creating attraction. You're killing it. Nobody is drawn to desperation. Nobody falls in love with pressure. Love thrives in freedom, not force. The biggest danger of begging is that it erodes your self-respect. Every time you plead for someone's attention, you're teaching yourself a dangerous lesson that you must work for scraps of love, that your value is conditional on how much effort you put into convincing them, that if you don't fight for their attention, you'll lose it. But the truth is, you should never have to fight to be seen. People who want you, who value you, who genuinely care about you, they don't need convincing. They're already present. They're already giving. Begging blinds you to this truth because it shifts your focus from self-worth to self-sacrifice. When you stop begging, everything changes. Your silence becomes more powerful than any paragraph you could write. Your absence speaks louder than constant calls. By refusing to beg, you create space, and space creates clarity. If they value you, they will notice the silence. They will feel the absence. They will move toward you. If they don't, that silence will expose the reality you were never a priority to them in the first place. And as painful as that truth may be, it's far better than living in a fantasy where you constantly try to convince someone to want you. Think about it. Begging never really works long term. Even if it gets you temporary attention, it's not genuine. It's forced. They may respond to your pleading out of guilt, pity, or annoyance. But that's not love. That's compliance. And compliance always fades because it's not rooted in true desire. The only kind of love worth having is the kind that's freely chosen. When you stop begging, you filter out the weak connections, the half-hearted efforts, the people who were never truly invested. You stop wasting energy on convincing, and you start allowing the right people to naturally gravitate toward you. Begging also reveals something deeper about your mindset. You're operating from scarcity, not abundance. Scarcity says, this person is my only chance. If I lose them, I lose everything. But abundance says, I am the prize. If they don't see it, someone else will. When you beg, you're sending the message that you believe your options are limited. And people can feel that energy. Desperation repels, while confidence attracts. The moment you shift from begging to believing in your own worth, the entire dynamic changes. You no longer need to force. You no longer need to plead. You simply allow the people who value you to show it, and you let go of those who don't. So remember, this begging is never about them. It's about you. It's a reflection of how you see yourself. If you beg for love, it's because you don't believe you deserve it without working for it. But the truth is, you are enough as you are. You don't need to chase. You don't need to plead. You don't need to earn attention. When you hold back from begging, you reclaim your power. You stand tall. You create space for real love to flow toward you. Love that is freely given, not extracted through desperation. And that kind of love is the only kind worth having. Words are cheap. Anybody can tell you what you want to hear. They can promise you love. They can swear loyalty. They can talk about how much they care, how much they see a future with you, how important you are to them. But here's the truth: talk without action is empty. Words without consistency mean nothing. If you want to know how somebody really feels about you, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do, because actions never lie. The mistake most people make is that they get caught up in words. They hear the sweet talk, they get swept up in the promises, and they ignore the fact that the actions don't line up. Someone says they love you, but they don't make time for you. Someone says they care, but they're not there when you need them. Someone says you're a priority, but they treat you like an option. The inconsistency is right in front of you, but instead of facing the truth, you hold on to the words. That's how people get hurt, by believing in fantasy instead of reality. Actions always reveal intention. You don't have to interrogate someone. You don't have to demand answers. You don't have to beg for clarity. All you have to do is watch. Are they calling you? Are they showing up? Are they making time even when it's inconvenient? Do they follow through on the things they say, or do their words evaporate as soon as they leave their lips? Consistency is everything. If someone's actions match their words, you can trust them. But if the actions are weak, if they're flaky, if they're always full of excuses, you have your answer. There's power in silence and observation. When you stop chasing and you just watch, you put yourself in the position of strength. Because now you're not forcing anything. You're not trying to drag effort out of them. You're simply observing, letting them reveal who they are. And trust me, they will. Given enough time, everyone shows their true colors. Some will rise up and show consistency, loyalty, and real care. Others will show you flackiness, avoidance, or disrespect. The key is not to interfere. Don't try to help them do better. Don't make excuses for them. Just watch. When you focus on actions, you cut through all the noise. You stop being fooled by charm. You stop falling for empty promises. You stop wasting time on people who are never going to follow through. Instead, you start living in reality. And reality might hurt at first, because sometimes it reveals the person you wanted isn't who they claim to be. But that clarity is a gift, because the sooner you see the truth, the sooner you can stop investing in the wrong people and open yourself up to the right ones. Watching actions also teaches you patience. Most people are in a rush. They want answers right now. They want certainty today. But strong people understand that consistency takes time to prove. Anyone can behave well for a week, for a month, even for a few months. But real character, real love, real loyalty, they reveal themselves in the long run. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't chase. That's why you don't try to force the process. You sit back, you stay calm, and you allow the truth to unfold. The moment you stop believing in words and start believing in actions, your whole world shifts. You stop being manipulated. You stop getting strung along. You stop falling for half efforts. Instead, you gain clarity, strength, and peace. People can't fool you anymore because you're no longer judging them by what they say in the moment. You're judging them by what they consistently do. And that's where your power lies. Watch the actions. Always, because in the end, actions will tell you everything you need to know. The foundation of every healthy relationship is self-respect. If you don't respect your own value, no one else will. It's that simple. People treat you the way you allow them to treat you. When you respect yourself, you naturally demand respect from others, not with force, not with anger, but through the quiet confidence of knowing your worth. But when you compromise your value, when you settle for less, when you accept crumbs of attention instead of the full loaf of love you deserve, you send a clear message: I don't believe I'm worth more. And people always respond to the standard you set for yourself. Respecting your value means you don't tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or neglect. Too many people ignore red flags because they're afraid of being alone. They tell themselves, maybe it'll change. Maybe if I'm patient, they'll come around. But what you're really doing is lowering your standards to keep someone who isn't even meeting the basics. And here's the harsh truth: the more you tolerate, the less they respect you. The less they respect you, the worse the behavior gets. And before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of giving and giving while receiving almost nothing in return. When you truly respect your value, you stop over-investing in people who don't reciprocate. You stop making excuses for their poor effort. You stop chasing validation from someone who's not showing up. Instead, you step back and say, if this is all you're willing to give, then this connection isn't worthy of me. That shift is powerful because it flips the dynamic. You're no longer the one trying to prove your worth. You're the one evaluating whether they're worthy of you. And that mindset change separates the strong from the desperate. Self-respect also shows up in how you carry yourself. It's not just about what you demand from others. It's about what you demand from yourself. Are you taking care of your body, your mind, your goals, your growth? When you live with standards in every area of life, people can feel it. They can sense that you're not someone who will settle, not someone who will cling, not someone who's afraid to walk away. That energy is magnetic. People respect you more when they see you respect yourself. And if they don't, then they're not your people. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing self-respect with arrogance. Respecting your value doesn't mean thinking you're better than everyone else. It doesn't mean looking down on people. It simply means you understand what you bring to the table, and you refuse to sit at a table where you're not appreciated. It's quiet strength. It's dignity. It's saying, I don't need to chase you. I don't need to beg. If you don't see my value, that's your loss, not mine. And that attitude keeps you from clinging to the wrong people. Respecting your value also means being willing to walk away. That's the ultimate test. Anyone can talk about self-respect when things are easy, but the real measure is when you're faced with a situation where someone isn't giving you what you deserve. Do you stay and hope it gets better? Or do you leave and make space for someone who will treat you right? Walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. Because every time you walk away from less than you deserve, you're telling the universe, I know my worth. I refuse to settle. Bring me better. When you hold strong to your value, you filter out the wrong people automatically. The ones who are inconsistent, manipulative, or disrespectful. They'll fall away because they can't survive in the presence of someone with real standards. And the ones who remain. Those are the people who truly value you, who respect you, who rise to meet your standards instead of dragging you down to theirs. That's the beauty of self-respect. It doesn't just protect you, it attracts the right kind of people into your life. The strongest relationships are built on freedom, not control. When you try to force someone to stay, when you pressure them to give you attention, when you attempt to manipulate their choices, you may get temporary compliance, but you'll never get real love. Real love is only meaningful when it's freely chosen. And that's why the smartest move you can make is to give them freedom. Freedom to come closer or freedom to walk away. Because if they come back by choice, you know it's genuine. If they leave, you know they were never really yours in the first place. So most people struggle with this idea because they operate out of fear. Fear says, if I don't hold on tightly, they'll slip away. If I give them freedom, they'll forget about me. If I don't chase, I'll lose them forever. That fear creates desperation, and desperation creates pressure. But pressure is a relationship killer. The tighter you try to hold someone, the more they resist. They start feeling suffocated, like they've lost their independence, and that pushes them further away. Love cannot breathe in an environment of fear and control. It thrives only in freedom. When you give someone freedom, you're sending a powerful message. I trust you. I trust the bond between us. I trust myself enough to know that if you truly want to be here, you'll choose to stay. That's a confident stance. It communicates strength and security. Instead of needing constant reassurance, you allow space. Instead of demanding attention, you sit back and observe. And that freedom often draws people closer because they feel safe with you. They don't feel trapped. They don't feel pressured. They feel like they can be themselves without the fear of being smothered. Freedom also reveals the truth much faster than control ever will. If you give someone space and they naturally move toward you, it's a sign of genuine connection. If you give them space and they drift away without effort, then you know where you truly stand. Either way, the freedom you allow brings clarity, and clarity is far more valuable than temporary comfort. Because what good is holding someone close if they don't actually want to be there? You might silence your fear for a moment, but deep down you'll always feel insecure. Only freedom gives you the certainty of knowing whether their actions are authentic. Think about it this way. If you have to force someone to stay, you don't really have them. You're holding a shadow, not a partner. True connection doesn't require manipulation. It doesn't require begging, guilt tripping, or ultimatums. It flows naturally. It grows stronger in space, not weaker. And the only way to know if someone truly belongs in your life is to allow them the choice to leave. If they stay despite the freedom, that's love. If they don't, that's your answer. Either way, you win because you gain truth and truth sets you free. Giving freedom doesn't mean being passive or indifferent. It doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior or settle for less than you deserve. It means you maintain your boundaries while still allowing the other person autonomy. If they cross those boundaries, you hold them accountable by stepping back, not by controlling them, but by respecting yourself enough not to chase after disrespect. Freedom is about balance. You don't cling and you don't ignore. You simply stand firm in your worth and let their choices reveal their intentions. When you master this mindset, you stop fearing loss. You stop obsessing over what they might do. You stop trying to control outcomes. Instead, you relax into the truth. The right person will always choose you, and the wrong one will always leave. Freedom becomes your filter. It weeds out the inconsistent, the half-hearted, and the dishonest. And it draws closer the ones who are real, the ones who value you, the ones who will stand by you because they want to, not because you forced them to. That's the kind of connection worth having. One of the hardest lessons to learn in life and relationships is detachment. Most people live in constant anxiety because they're obsessed with the outcome. Will they stay? Will they leave? Will they call? Will they love me back? That obsession creates pressure. And the more you focus on controlling the outcome, the less control you actually have. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you stop trying to force a result. You stop tying your happiness to someone else's choices. You let go of the need to know how everything will play out. And in doing that, you gain peace. When you're attached to the outcome, every little thing becomes a crisis. If they don't reply fast enough, you spiral. If they cancel plans, you panic. If they act distant, you immediately assume the worst. That level of attachment makes you unstable. It turns you into a person who reacts out of fear instead of responding with strength. And the irony is that very instability pushes people away. Nobody wants to feel responsible for your happiness. Nobody wants the weight of your emotional survival on their shoulders. The more attached you are, the less attractive you become. Detachment shifts all of that. When you detach from the outcome, you say, I want this to work, but I don't need it to work. I'd like for you to stay, but I'll be okay if you leave. I'm open to love, but I'm not dependent on it. That mindset is powerful because it communicates strength. It shows you're not desperate. It shows you're not clinging. It shows that your sense of self-worth doesn't rise and fall based on what someone else decides. People can feel that. They can feel when you're calm, secure, and self-sufficient, and that kind of energy draws them closer instead of pushing them away. Detachment also frees you from manipulation. When you're desperate for a certain outcome, you'll tolerate behavior you shouldn't. You'll accept breadcrumbs. You overlook red flags. You'll let someone treat you poorly because you're terrified of losing them. But when you detach, you see everything clearly. You're no longer blinded by fear. If they show up consistently, great, you enjoy it. If they don't, you step back without begging or pleading. Detachment keeps you grounded in reality instead of fantasy. And reality is where your strength lies. Another gift of detachment is patience. When you're obsessed with the outcome, you rush everything. You demand clarity too soon. You want guarantees before they even exist. But strong connections can't be rushed. They take time to develop. Detachment allows you to slow down and let things unfold naturally. You don't need to know today how it will look in a year.